Hey, this is going to align with my home option, and today we have a not so fun but very important video that we're going to be talking about. It's a public service announcement. We're going to be talking about sellers beware of bad investors. We're going to be talking about a situation that I just got hit up with today, and I'm going to be walking you through what happened and how to avoid this situation. So let's check it out. Hey everybody, so like I said, not a fun situation, but it's really important that you are armed with information ahead of time. So I want to bring this real life right now scenario to you so you can see this is what you face if you try to go to the marketplace and connect with an investor who sent you a postcard, sent you a mailer that you don't really know, you don't have trust with, you don't have rapport, and you just might not get connected with quality. Quality is so key. Let me read you this message that I got. Hey, I have a seller who is about to be foreclosed on in the next 10 days. She signed a contract with another investor who put a 45-day closing on the contract. Ugh, right there. There's already going to be some kind of difficulty. Obviously, there's foreclosure, coming forward, 10 days away. We're getting really close. And there's a 45-day closing on the contract. The buyer hasn't physically even looked at the property yet, and they told the seller they would be out next week to look at the property, and then they would begin the title process. She will be forced to be foreclosed on by the time this happens. Any suggestions to help the seller? First off, I just want to say, to avoid this situation, this is exactly why me and my team, we're here. This is why we made my home option, is to protect you as a home seller with one of your greatest, biggest investments that you have from bad investors or predatory investors or bad lenders or bad realtors even. So let's talk about what's happening in this situation and how you can avoid it. First off, when we kind of talked about how do we navigate from this point, some of the biggest things that we have is we've got 10 days till foreclosure. There's a 45-day closing on the contract. And, just talking about, obviously, we've even talked about in other videos how that title process can really take a long time. And if they haven't even looked at it yet, they're checking it out next week. You're talking, they might be like 6 days away from foreclosure. Title takes longer than 6 days most of the time. And so this just puts the seller in a really sticky situation. So your first and easiest solution, if you get stuck in a scenario like this and you truly believe that your first investor isn't going to be able to close, the first person to put it under contract, really your key, I would say make sure you do this at the beginning of the process, but if you're already at this point, make sure you get connected with, first off, me and my team. We would absolutely love to help you and give you any support and help that we can give you, connect you with the right people to get you back out of this situation. But one of those ways is connecting with an A+ investor. It might not be too late. Now, an A+ investor, one of the first things that they'll probably try to do is they'll probably try to go talk to the first investor. So let's say that Joe was the first investor to put this home under contract, and then Sally is your second A+ investor that you got connected with through my home option. Sally could then try to connect with Joe and say, hey, Joe, look, I understand that you have it under contract for X amount. The buyer, the home seller doesn't feel like you're going to be able to close. Do you understand, first off, what's going on in the situation, that we're this close to foreclosure? Are you going to be able to close? If you're not going to be able to close, is there some way that we could work it out where Sally could say, hey, I'll close on the house, but still make sure you get paid, $1,000, $3,000, $5,000, whatever for the contract that you already have. Or maybe Joe can assign the contract to Sally. There's so many different things that can be done through this process to make everything work. And so really, a good conversation is the best place to start. Don't be afraid to talk to the first investor. Don't be afraid to have, an A+ investor talking to this investor and see if first, can you just work out a solution between everybody? Maybe there wasn't understanding about what's going on in the situation. Maybe Joe didn't understand the timeline on that foreclosure. Maybe it wasn't communicated well by the homeowner, or he just missed that piece of information or something. I always try to give the benefit of the doubt first. But, finding a cordial solution, I always find is the best, route to take first and foremost. From there, if Joe's not responsive, he gets aggressive, or he's not answering, or you can't get a hold of him or something like that, then I go to the next step of I start asking, okay, is this contract legitimate? Number one, if you're in a foreclosure situation like this, is the close date before or after the foreclosure date? Because if it's after the foreclosure date, then it's an illegitimate contract, because they have rights to buy the property from you at a point in time where the home will no longer be in your name or your home to sell. So it's an illegitimate contract. Also you can call up the title company, as long as they had the title company on their contract and earnest money. If you remember back to our TREC videos, you can check out the TREC contracts. Make sure you're always using a TREC contract. I would highly, highly, highly recommend this. So make sure you're checking out those TREC contracts. Make sure that you're using a TREC contract. I always recommend that you make sure that they have an earnest money. If they have an earnest money deposit and you're using a TREC contract that has an earnest money deposit, did they submit that earnest money to title on time? If they didn't, then the contract is null and void. If they did, then kind of pursue forward. And then lastly, is this just a one-page random one-off contract that's actually not very secure, or is it a actual legitimate TREC contract? And so there, once you've asked, some of those questions, before, and I would say even as you're thinking about, is this a legitimate contract, one of the biggest power plays on your side is going to be talking to an attorney. Attorney's going to be able to review the contract, review the situation, and tell you who's in the right, who's in the wrong, what are the different options from here going forward. And then last case scenario, and you absolutely should make this a last case scenario. You should seek legal advice first, but consider closing with another investor. If you're connected with Sally, Joe's not answering, Joe's not communicating, Joe's not participating, you've talked to a lawyer, they say, hey, the contract's not legitimate, or Sally can buy it or anything like that, and Joe's just not willing to communicate, or get the deal done, and it's between you and foreclosure, that's a place where I would recommend, then, as long as you have the sign off by an attorney, then you write a contract to Sally and have Sally close the home, before you end up foreclosing. Like I said, make that your last case. If you signed a contract, it's important for you to understand what you're signing first. If you didn't understand it, that's not the first investor's fault. Unfortunately, it's your fault. But that's why we're putting information and presentations out there for homeowners to empower you with information. But make sure that you're talking closely with an attorney, you're getting everything sorted out, so you don't lose your home, you don't lose everything, but you also go about this process in the most legitimate way possible. So in closing, though, I want to say, if you're stuck in a situation like this, you can still reach out to My Home Option. We will help get you connected with the people that you need to get connected with in order to get yourself back out of this situation. But before you even let yourself get to this point and get stuck in this situation, reach out to us over here at the My Home Option team so we can get you started off with an A+ investor or an A+ lender or an A+ realtor from the get-go, get you started on a solid foundation. It's absolutely free. It takes like 15 minutes for a one-on-one call. You can schedule that call at myhomeoption.com, and our number one purpose is to serve you and to help you really get launched off in this process in the best way possible with an A+ real estate professional who's going to be looking out first and foremost to meet your needs and your wants during the process of this transaction. So make sure you go to myhomeoption.com, set up your free one-on-one 15-minute phone call consultation with me and my team, and we look forward to serving you in the very near future.